Oh, hi there. Would you believe it? It's raining again.
I can't see.
Well, you know what that means. Wet roots, slippy turns, slick rocks, terrible vision, honking brakes. Sure, I'm glad I don't have to go out with any expensive electronic camera equipment and wait for some drippy weapon to ride the same section for the 8th time.
Right, it's definitely recording now.
Okay.
Oh, I got a pain on my mouth.
Let's go for a dribble. Dribble. To dribble, and to therefore be a dribbler, is an interesting linguistic use case in the context of riding a mountain bike. To derive meaning and intent, it's interesting and necessary to explore use cases in other countries and cultures around the world. A risque use in South Africa involves football players who are notorious for their promiscuity when it comes to short-term relationships with sexual partners. These relationships usually last around 8 hours from introduction to departure and are numerous in their frequency. These individuals are coined dribblers because just like the nighttime rendezvous in their profession, when they dribble, they go through everyone. Dribbling on a mountain bike doesn't really fit this, as I'd imagine it takes confidence and skill to go through everyone. We could view each rendezvous as a mistake, and they move from one mistake to the other, which kind of does fit, but it's a stretch. A common use case here in Old Blighty is used when referring to an individual who just can't stop talking. The content of their unrelenting word salad is usually nonsensical or incorrect, sometimes pure fabrication or quite possibly just delusional. Interestingly though, this use case is actually incorrect, as the proper term is drivel. But I guess they sound exactly the same, so those of us interested in the sanctity of the written word just have to bottle up their rage and then suddenly uncork it on their significant other. While there are some comparisons to be made with talking rubbish and writing rubbish, still, it just doesn't quite fit. Unsatisfyingly, in this scenario, it seems the most obvious answer may be the correct one. A dribble is a gravity-powered, slow-moving, weak and unstable stream of water that makes pitiful progress down the path of least resistance. Now that is an accurate representation of dribbling on a mountain bike. Oh, ouch, oh, your feelings. Oh, well, we'd better find out why we dribble. So you're an absolute wizard when it's dry and dusty, but as soon as those sky tears drop down onto the ground, you engage dribble mode. Why? What's happening? Well, everyone knows that if you get something wet, it gets slippy. Rendell, do not dare. Like, I know you're thinking, I'm not sending you to the headmaster's office again.
Your mum had a low coefficient of friction last night.
Excellent terminology, Rendell. Now get out. Now, headmaster's office, now. Come on. Get out. Good. The amount of grip a tire has reduces when the ground is saturated, as a layer of water sits between the tire and the ground molecules, creating a slip layer that makes it easier for the shear forces generated by cornering and braking to initiate a slide. So this is true for water on rocks and roots, but not fingers. Like if I'm trying to turn a page in a book, grip actually increases when I wet my finger. Why is that? I do actually have an answer for the finger paper anomaly. Water has polar molecules with negative and positive sides that have a very slight stickiness as they adhere to charged particles in your finger and the paper is so light that the little bit of magnetism allows you to grip the paper enough to turn the page. It's completely irrelevant to riding a bike like an absolute melt in the wet, but still incredibly interesting. Luckily, friction is not the only way to generate grip. The tire's tread pattern can also create mechanical grip by either grabbing onto edges or by digging into soft ground to create its own edges to lock onto and generate grip. The softer the ground, the taller and more narrow you want the knobs so they can really dig down and latch on while also shedding any mud they pick up. Conversely, the firmer and smoother the ground, The shorter and wider you want the knobs so the tyre has the most contact area on the ground as possible to try and find traction. Tyre grip, when there is nothing to mechanically hold on to, is dictated by how much rubber can contact the ground. That's why soft rubber, lower pressures generate more grip by having a bigger contact patch. They can mold around the features on the track and get more tyre touching ground. Now, here's the interesting trade-off you might already realise. It's extremely difficult to have super high mechanical grip and super high friction. The more you soften rubber to increase friction, the less stable the treads are, and they just deform like wet noodles instead of latching onto edges and penetrating into the dirt. The more you harden rubber to increase mechanical grip, the less friction the tyre can generate on solid objects. This means when you're riding wet tracks with firm ground, it's better to run an intermediate or dry tread pattern with a softer compound and slightly lower tyre pressure than switching to a wet condition tyre. Then, if the track is more soft and loose, a wet or mud tyre with a firmer compound will dig in more. It's a super hard balance to find, but luckily tyre brands have figured a lot of it out for you, some better than others. It's just up to you to put the effort into installing the right ones, as if you don't, you'll be dribbling slower than a blue whale, because cetaceans have atrophied saliva glands, so, you know, slow dribble. Took me 20 minutes to write that. We could dive into the mechanics of suspension design, setup and their effects on grip in the wet, but I've got to keep something in the back pocket for next season. I will say there are two other bike modifications that have a huge effect on wet weather performance. In general, sintered brake pads work better in the wet, so will give you better speed control, provided you've got the right tyres on at the right pressure. The rabbit hole of research I went into to find out why sintered brake pads work better in the wet didn't provide anything concrete. Really difficult. I hypothesized that it's a combination of the porosity of the metallic compound that allows water to displace rather than creating the slip layer that we talked about with the tyres on the ground. And their higher thermal capacity should allow them to remain at a temperature that either boils or rapidly evaporates water off the braking surfaces. Someone will have the answer down in the comments though, there's always someone. If you have seen the washout episode, you will be familiar with the principles of aiming for positive camber when turning grip is required. And it's even more important when there is less grip available. Good body positioning and vision is also required to accomplish this consistently. Having good vision requires you to be able to see, and you can't see with mud in your eyes.
I can't see.
Holy.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Give me a bike.
Big full-length mud guards and eye protection are an absolute no-brainer. You need that high-res quality data flowing into your cranium to make decisions that will limit a dribbly output. Despite that, it's still really challenging to ride well in the wet, and it's really due to something a bit more intangible. It's a little bit harder to grasp. Confidence.
And what gave you the confidence?
Delusion.
If confidence could be broken down in just simple, just concrete, repeatable formula, I'd be selling that recipe to everyone that wanted it. Confidence is the key that unlocks the ability to execute the principles that make it all just flow like a raging torrent rather than drip like a wobbly dribble. The ability to stay loose and let the bike move and find grip despite it slipping. To stay centered so you can place the tyre where you want instead of getting defensive and leaning back. The confidence to get off the brakes where traction is at the lowest instead of panicking and then hauling on the anchors. It is something that, as an honest teacher, I will not try and package into a quick fix. Experience, practice, and savvy equipment choices all add up to a greater whole. Make it comfortable. Wear kit to keep you dry and warm. Use flat pedals so dabbing is easier. Avoid gnar if you're not feeling it, but dive in and test yourself when you are. Now let's wipe these scribbles off the board and see some viewer dribbles. Okay, let's have a look. We got David Miller in the wet. Oh, it is wet. A little bit greasy out there. Down he goes. Yeah, wash the front. And he's wearing a shiny... Oh, I don't know what that is. It was like an Elvis costume or something, and his mate is wearing pajamas. So this is clearly a stag ride or like some kind of, maybe a Christmas ride, but it's definitely wet. It looks very UK. So what did he do wrong other than wearing that outfit? So it's really hard sometimes to tell exactly what was the cause of a crash when it's wet, because there's just so many things slipping and moving the tires about. Could be you looked in the wrong place, could be you just slipped and were a bit too stiff and it just caused you to get pushed offline. It could be your tires the wrong pressure, bike suspension is not quite set up right. There's just so many things going on. It's hard to know exactly what it is, but I think this one was an issue of vision over precision. And I think he was looking too far ahead for the conditions and the speed he was going, which sounds like, oh, how can that be an issue? But I think he is looking, if I just bring this over here, I think he's starting to turn his head and he's looking kind of over in this direction at this area, which is good. But you can see his front wheel is currently pointing kind of in this sort of direction, which isn't really conducive to going around the corner. I feel like where he is right now and the way the conditions are and the speed he was going, that he should still be just eyes locked on to the main part of this corner, the place you need to put your tires to then grip and make it round this corner. And then once you know your wheels are locked in, they're bang center, that's where the grip is, then you look through to the next section. And yeah, I just feel he looked a bit too early. Also his body position's not great. His hips kind of go off to the inside of the corner, which is not where you really want them to be. You either want to be kind of in line with the bike or hips set to the outside of the corner. And yeah, I'm gonna go with vision for this one. Great outfit, great outfit. He also tries to kind of fix things in the corner by pulling a load of front brake, which obviously doesn't work because it's too slippy. You can't turn and steer when there's no grip. So next up we've got, it says it on the bike, M. Leanne. It's actually written on his top tube, but it's very handy. So you can see the conditions here. We've got lush green foliage in the forest. It's definitely been raining. It's dark dirt. I often find that dark dirt is very soft and it's kind of hard to hold your line. And I find when the tracks are like that, the ruts can kind of get quite narrow and it becomes really difficult just to balance and follow the track. Let's watch. Very difficult to balance and follow the track. So yeah, hit the right-hander, washed the front, was off balance, and there was just not much he could really do for the next left-hander. So first thing is when the bike slips and say you're off balance and like the rut goes one way but your balance is going the other, it's actually really tricky to do. But what you have to do is don't stay with the bike, because if you do, you'll just slip and end up going the wrong way. You actually have to like let the bike follow the track and then try and bring it back underneath you once there's room to steer and room to move. And that is really hard to practice because it requires you to be relaxed. It requires you to be kind of conscious of what you need to do. So like, you can practice this if you have a corner and purposely come in too tight and see if you can get the wheels to like follow the rut and then bring it back underneath you. But very conscious thing a very hard thing to consciously practice. And yeah, just washed out a little bit on the right, tried to correct. You can see it like slipped a little bit. It might have even been a little bit of braking in there because you can see the front wheel turn, but it's just going straight for a moment, and that's when he loses the balance. And also, you have to try and balance for the exit of a kind of section of turns. So like, for example, if we back up and get a nice pause screen here, we can see that the track is like a right-hand turn and then a left down the next bit. And if you just balance for the right, so aim to balance and then come out the corner, you'll be in the next corner and already you're going straight, you're not going the right way. So you actually need to try and like look through and try and balance the exit of the next corner. So if you lean in properly for the right, you're going to be too late to get your balance right on the left. So I still crash like this. It happens. Outcast77 uploaded this absolute beauty. So you can tell it's an off-camber, slippy section of track, and let's just watch it. I just love it when people are out filming and just having a good time, eh? It's like when if someone was filming and messed it up and then just went in a big mood, you'd be like, oh, come on, pull yourself together. But he's just giggling. Look at him. He's having an absolute giggle. So, comes down into this section, you can see super slippy, kind of all over the shop. And you see under braking, he was maybe or line was just a bit too far to the left. I would say in a section where there's like a corner, you never want to be, if there's like a channel, you never want to be towards the outside. Because if you slip, it's going to tip you the wrong way. I'd say if you're going to err on the side of being inside or outside, if it's like a bowl-shaped track, towards the inside, if you're coming into a corner, is better, because then if you slip, it just leans you in more and you can dab and carry on. But if you slip and get pitched to the outside, like this guy, not a whole lot you can really do to fix it, because to shift your balance, the only thing you can really do is to steer. And to lean yourself into a corner more, you have to steer to the outside of the corner to tip you in. And if you're already right in the edge and slipping, there's not much you can do. Also, when you lose your balance, hardest thing to do if you're slipping and losing traction and you need to find grip again, pulling on the brakes more will make it worse. And yeah, definitely a bit of panic, pulling on the brakes more. Good dismount though. High-five the tree, flop down, a few pelvic thrusts to celebrate. Not bad. That's a bit of a classic. Tell you what, you're just lucky you can't feel the cold, man. True, I wouldn't enjoy a jet wash to the bottom bracket, not with my ceiling. I don't have a ceramic colon though. Right, wipe that saliva off your cheek. We've cured that dribble. Just remember, slightly lower pressures from dry, correct tires for the conditions, mudguards, glasses, warm waterproof clothing, and time on the bike in the wet. Confidence comes with experience. Go on, get out there, have fun with it, and go from a trickle to a torrent.
I'm filming.
Conceptually, it's quite hard to convey riding in the wet when it's dry. So, river.
Please fold, please fold, please fold, please fold. Aww.
And that's a wrap. Everyone thought I could do it, but I didn't.